Welcome everybody. This is our 6th Learning Leaders webinar, which I'm excited at how much, for those that have attended, have really enjoyed and learned from our various speakers in the past. The feedback and the experiences that we've heard have been overwhelming. Unfortunately, this will be our last event for 2020, which we aim to resume in the new year in or around February. And we look forward to continuing these discussions with various learning leaders in our corporate sector of South Africa who very generously share their expertise and learnings in their businesses. I also want to specifically make mention of a very warm welcome to our African brothers and sisters who are dialing in from Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Uganda. We as iLearn hope to be able to begin delivering our learning solutions in those territories in the near future. And also, it's Bosses Day. Happy Bosses Day, which I was reminded, and I'm very grateful to some of my staff who gifted me some healthy chocolate that I look forward to eating later today. So, you know, as a boss and those of us that are responsible for our human capital, I believe we have the privilege and advantage of leading, growing and directing the people in our organizations to be able to realize their ultimate potential and live their highest truth. A role that comes with a lot of responsibility and something I personally take very seriously. So with that in mind, today we have Sthembiso Phakathi from Deloitte, who will be speaking to us specifically about the very well-renowned Human Capital Report, a report that has been presented and published since 2011, which gives us the advantage of gaining a global perspective of the advances in human capital and how you as an individual in your organization can take and implement those learnings. So to give you some perspective, Sthembiso is currently the Director in Human Capital Practice at Deloitte Consulting, where he focuses mainly on energy, resources and in the industrial sector. He's also a part-time lecturer at Wits University in the Department of Economics and has many experiences and is a talented business advisor who has built many strong business relationships over many years, where he works with his clients to harness culture and build competitive advantage through strategic focus, business connection, and execution excellence. He's most notably known for his passion for organizational design and behavioral change management. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sthembiso onto the stage to join me, who will then begin with his presentation and give us some wonderful insights into the world of human capital.
Thank you so much, Richard, for that intro. I appreciate it. Good afternoon to everyone, wherever you'll be dialing from. The survey was released or actually opened in July 2019. We received responses from about 339 professionals, about 55% of whom were from HR. And then around August this year, we launched the report. So the report, as Richard indicated, is our flagship survey in human capital globally, and then spanning from 2011. So this year, we're actually launching our number 10 report globally. So the results that I'm going to share with you now are based on the South African survey. And again, about 340 professionals, most of whom actually came from human capital. I'm going to switch off the video and then I'm going to start sharing my screen. Richard or Charlene, if you can just confirm if my screen is sharing.
You're all good.
Great stuff. All right, so let me start. So as I said, colleagues, from 2011, this has been a long time coming. You can see how the topics have evolved from 2011 all the way down to this year. I mean, in this year, we now have got 10 chapters. And then I've got 3 themes. So you're going to see, and then again, the narrative this year is around the social enterprise at work, the paradox as a path forward. The quick question, as you may have seen in your invites, is around how we can actually remain human in a technology-driven world. By the way, I need to state this as a caveat. The survey was done before the pandemic, so the results have got nothing, or the pandemic has got nothing to do with the results, or actually the collection of data was done before COVID-19. So this is the big question that we'll try to answer in this survey. So as I outlined, we have got about 3 themes, one of which is purpose. Under each theme, under each of the first three themes is 3 chapters. Under purpose, we've got belonging, designing work for well-being, and post-generational workforce. So those are the chapters under that theme. The second theme was around potential. There we've got super teams, knowledge management, as well as reskilling. The third theme is around perspective. There we've got compensation, governing workforce strategies, as well as ethics and the future of work. Most importantly, we had the 10th chapter that was looking at the memo to HR. By that we mean, how does HR gear itself or prepare itself or get itself ready for the future in terms of extending its influence? Let's dive now into the chapters themselves. I think in terms of the social enterprise at work, we tried to clarify the narrative around the relationship between people and technology. And again, across these 3 themes, as you can see, it's not about what replaces the other or what substitutes the other. There has been fear in previous research efforts by Deloitte whether technology is going to replace humans, and you can see the big thing in this survey is that actually humans need to actually work closely with technology. So as you can see, the interface between the two. And then again, as we talk about technology, so where will the fusion of humans and technology take us in terms of the future of work? So all these 10 chapters begin to drill down into this relationship between people and technology. Let's talk about the 3 chapters, the first 3 chapters in the report. So the first one is going to be belonging. So we asked respondents around connection, contribution, and belonging. Why is this important to them? And then this is some of the results, and these are the highlights. Actually, a lot of people that responded to the survey actually said that fostering a sense of belonging was important for the organization, especially for the near future of about 18 months. And about 66 out of 10 actually said a sense of belonging drives organizational performance. And we are actually seeing this now as we move into new ways of working. High rates of consensus, even if teams are working remotely or are working differently, we are seeing a lot of initiatives around belonging. What is concerning though is that only about 48% of our respondents said that they were actually ready to address this trend in terms of improving opportunities for the workforce to feel or have a sense of belonging, which raises the question that how can you define belonging in a way that maximizes impact and influence for both employees and the organization? So if only about 5 out of 10 of the organizations are ready, how are we going to take this process forward to create impact for both people and the organizations in which they work? The next chapter then looked at well-being. I think well-being, you would imagine, especially with COVID-19, it's a topical discussion. It's top of mind for many executives. Living and performing at your best. So we asked questions here around what can organizations and executives do to make people feel they can actually perform at their best. Some results here. almost everyone that was surveyed actually said well-being was an organizational responsibility. And again, if you push or reduce well-being to an HR program, you're probably not going to find or benefit from the initiative or from the activity. Almost everyone that was surveyed felt it was important, it was an organizational responsibility. However, just less than 44% actually say are seeing impact beyond workforce experience. I think the notion of workforce experience is one thing, but belonging and well-being is another. About 7 out of 10 of the respondents felt that well-being is not integrated to the work. So well-being, so what we are hearing here is that actually well-being should not be a separate program that is not intertwined with work itself. The question here is then really, how can organizations begin to design well-being into work itself as part of work, not seen as an HR program or as an event or as a campaign. The third one was around post-generational workforce. Here, we've been talking over the past 5 or 6 years a lot about millennials, or the emergence of this workforce type. But now we're beginning to see the perennials. And today's workforce is very, very complex, for Gen X to down to millennials and perennials. How do these workforce types begin to work together? We put the question around their unique contributions in terms of maximizing their value to the business and to their clients, as well as their customers. Some interesting results here. Almost 7 out of 10 felt that multi-generational workforces are important or will be important in the next 12 to 18 months. Almost 5 out of 10 say that they're actually considering the differences between the workforce types where they are working. So this begs the question, because really what we see here also, what is concerning from this study result, is that very few leaders are actually equipped to lead a multi-generational workforce effectively. And that was the concerning part for us. Although we see that the workforce mix is actually unavoidable, it's actually commonplace now, but very few leaders feel that they are equipped to deal with it in an effective manner. And again, the question here is, should traditional workforce segmentation approaches based on generation remain the focus for workforce strategies? So that's a key question. So now let's look at what we found on potential. So this is the second theme. Let's look at super teams. So when we talk about super teams, I think I did say earlier, with the fusion of humans and machines has been confusing to a lot of people, thinking that machines are replacing or displacing people, or are actually substituting human beings. Here we ask the question, how can humans actually work together with AI? In fact, in this research at Deloitte, we regard machines as talent in such a way that we actually look at how we can fuse them in the day-to-day work that human beings are performing. So we ask the questions around how can, in a transformative manner, how can AI actually be fused into the day-to-day work that human beings perform on a daily basis? And this is some of the interesting results here. Interestingly, only about 20% of the respondents felt that organizations are actually making significant investments in reskilling people in such a way that they can actually fuse or work together effectively with AI or machines. And about 57% are focusing their AI strategy in terms of improving consistency and quality. So this is quite interesting. A lot of people, not a lot of people, say that they're actually reskilling the workforce for the future. What is also interesting here, however, is that about 8 out of 10 of the respondents actually responded by saying that they were using AI to improve insights. So if you're actually using AI or this type of data to actually improve organizational insights, is there really not an opportunity to reskill your workforce in such a way that they work together meaningfully and effectively with machines? And again, are your organizations really set up to truly optimize the value that AI can bring to the workforce and the work itself? So that was quite interesting to us as well. The next chapter under this theme was around knowledge management. Here we asked the question around the context within which we use data and how we mine data and how machines actually release data for consumption, for decision making, and also for both the personal consumption by human beings as well as organizations themselves. So as you know today, if you're actually listening to this conversation, you are maybe an HR professional, you know that we work in a connected world. Today we work in connected teams. We've got a network of teams, but how do we then consume data and information to make decisions and to disseminate information? Interestingly here, about 7 out of 10 of those that responded felt that creating and preserving knowledge was important for the success of a company, especially within the near future of about 18 months. Yet about 66% really define knowledge management as the simple documentation as opposed to dissemination of information. This is quite interesting for us because 66% is quite a big number. So a lot of people believe it's important to use knowledge management to evolve the workforce, but yet a lot of the people, 66%, actually feel that actually it's just documenting stuff and disseminating knowledge, but not really using knowledge as key insights to make meaningful decisions. 70% have yet to incorporate AI into their knowledge management strategy. So it's quite interesting as well. This is a very, very big number. So which means a lot of people are still figuring out how do we use insights and data to make decisions and infuse that information with our AI strategies and also use the information to make meaningful decisions. So that was quite interesting. There's a question that remains in this chapter around people and machines as well. Are organizations really taking advantage of the opportunity to create knowledge through people and machines? And again, as I've said a few moments ago, how can machines use information? Sometimes a lot of our clients believe that machines are just going to use information just for reporting and releasing fancy reports. But we are seeing that the collaboration between machines and humans is actually beyond that. It's all about using information and data to make better decisions. Now let's look at reskilling. So the chapter around reskilling really was about reinventing skills for resilience, especially for the future that is uncertain beyond us, before us. So we're looking here at organizations using different types of skills to be more future fit and reinventing themselves to actually stand the threat that is before us in terms of work security and other issues that might face the workforces of the future. So we found that almost 30% or 25% thereabout of the 39, so the 39 that were surveyed said they could actually, to a great extent, anticipate new skills that are needed. So, and again, to me, that was not expected. We expected a larger number than this, that more than almost 50% of the organizations are going to anticipate new skills needed. Because of AI, digital transformation, there's definitely going to be a shift in skills and capabilities. By skills, actually, we also mean organizational capabilities. 21% expect that their organizations are going to make significant investment in this area in terms of reskilling. And again, this is not a big number. So it means our executives and the leaders, wherever you may be, it doesn't matter the sector, you do not see the need to invest in reskilling the workforce. And begs the question, where are you going to climb on the wagon? Because the chain of change is not waiting. And again, our organizations really looking at reskilling their workforce to align for the future. So that's the key question. So those numbers, 25 and 21%, were really not expected. So it means organizations have chosen to invest in other things as opposed to reskilling their workforces. So the last chapter that I want to touch on is on perspective. Here we talk compensation, governing strategies, as well as ethics. Let's look at compensation. As you know, I think I did mention earlier that as we see the rise of millennials as well as perennials and a different workforce mix, different workforce types are motivated by different things in the workplace. So how do you design your compensation strategies to cater for everyone in the company? So we put the questions around that narrative. As the workforce mix becomes more complex and more diverse, what kind of approaches are organizations using to pave a path forward that is anchored on different data sets, also based on the knowledge that the workforce mix is changing quite significantly. Interestingly, 70%, as you know, 23% of the people that we surveyed actually said in the past 3 years, they actually haven't redesigned their compensation strategy. But we do know that salary and wages actually account for about 65 to 70% of the organization's total cost. So why are people or HR professionals actually not thinking about new approaches around compensation? And perhaps there's more work that needs to be done in this area to understand why this is not shifting, because most of the costs are sitting in people costs. The other narrative here is the question around how the compensation is designed to basically think about how the future of work is going to be set up. As you can see here, 28% plan to redesign compensation strategies in the future. And again, these numbers are dwindling. In my mind, I was hoping that about 40% of the respondents would say that they're actually thinking of relooking at their compensation strategies moving forward. And again, there's a lot of work or thinking that still needs to go into this area in terms of compensation strategies. I want to talk briefly now as we approach the end around governing strategies or workforce strategies. Here, the questions were surrounding the thing around how do you do delegations and how do you do decisions rights framework, and how our workforce strategies are going to evolve in the uncertain times, especially as we look into different workforce types and different work in the future. And then this is quite interesting as well that came out here. Less than 40% of the leaders indicated that they're actually not interested in workforce related information. So which is quite interesting. So they're basically saying, well, yeah, we do have some insights and some data, but we're actually not using that data to think about the workforce-related designs and how workforce strategies of the future are going to be put together or designed. So that also was fairly low in terms of the results. This is quite interesting. 11% actually produce insights real time. So, and again, think about knowledge management that we've just discussed during a few moments ago. Only 1 in 10 actually produce real insights, if real data in real time. So as you can imagine, if you don't have data in your fingertips, you're probably not going to be able to be agile in terms of making swift decisions where it matters. Because if you spend time looking for information, mining data, and not knowing where the data sits, maybe having different data warehouses all over the place in the workplace, you're going to probably stifle the process of decision making. So this 11% was also very concerning for us. It is quite low. Not a lot of organizations that we surveyed actually produce information in real time. About 54%, maybe 5 in 10, they do it sometimes and maybe not at all, which also raises the question. So how do you then make your day-to-day decisions if you produce data on an ad hoc basis? Is it that we are not producing enough data, or we are not asking the right questions? Do we even know where the data lives in the organization, and how accurate and how reliable is the data? So that is the big question. If about 5 out of 10 say, we do it sometimes, or maybe not at all. So that was the outcome. And again, I was hoping that there would be a lot of people actually doing this over there and producing real lifetime data on an ongoing basis. Now let's talk about ethics briefly as we approach the end. Here we ask questions around ethics. Could we or should we? Do we really have a choice around facing this conundrum of the future of work, or should we just wait and see it happen to us, or we should take some proactive actions as organizations in terms of approaching this ethical question? Organizations today are grappling and wrestling around the increased ethical challenges and ethical questions around if people are going to be working in a flexible manner, and we see the emergence of these flexible work arrangements. What about ethics? And are there some choices that we have to make? Are there policies that we're going to put in place to ensure that we bed down the ethical question around the future of work? This is what we found. I mean, almost 90% respondents believe that the future of work is going to raise some big ethical challenges. So by ethical challenges, whether, I mean, as you can imagine, if people work from anywhere and they work when it makes sense for them, are there ethical questions that are going to arise out of that? However, based on this survey, which is quite concerning again, only about 30% of the respondents have got clear policies around procedures, policies, and standards around this question, around ethics. So it means, although it's important, they see the impact, but they don't have clear policies around how they're going to manage it moving forward. And again, there's a question that arises out of this in terms of how organizations should be thinking and navigating the ethical complexities associated with the future of work. Because we do know the future of work is not going to be a choice. I think with the pandemic, it's been accelerated to some point, or to some extent. So that's not the question. The question is, how are you going to manage the issue of ethics now that you're moving into different ways of work? Because that is not avoidable, it's actually inevitable. As we speak today, most of organizations are finding different ways of doing their work, depending on the sector and the type of jobs in the organization. And then the last chapter, which was number 10, was the message or the memo to HR. So here we ask the question, how is HR going to get ready for all these 9 shifts that we've discussed just now? In the coming decade, how is HR going to remain relevant and remain and to have an influence and to increase and extend its influence into the business and to its internal clients. So this memo actually had some questions around whether you feel HR is going to be ready in the next 10 years or not. And this is what we found. Almost 40% of HR professionals believe that HR will actually change in a substantial way. Almost 4 out of 10. So the rest don't believe HR is going to shift in any manner at all. But 15% are not confident in the ability of HR to make that shift. So, and again, that's concerning for me. And when we analyze the data, we tried to understand why such a little number of respondents feel that HR has got the ability to make the shift. And again, if you double click into the content, you probably would find that it's around processes, it's around HR technology, it's around all kinds of things like policies and frameworks, and that makes HR not in a position to actually make that leapfrog in terms of the shift. What is also interesting that for us is that an additional 34% of thereabout are only somewhat confident. So these kinds of people are almost have an idea of where the HR is going to go, but they're not really confident. They are somewhat confident. So they don't believe that they've got the right capability mix to actually make that shift. And again, all these numbers are very low. It was well beyond our expectation. It begs the question, so what shifts can HR make to have exponential impact in the future? When we talk about exponential impact, we talk about an impact that is going to go beyond its internal clients, but it's also going to touch customers and clients, external customers and clients as well. So HR become adaptable, they deliver at speed, and they also become future fit. So this, if you think about it, there's a lot of work with our clients that we need to help them shape the narrative around the exponential HR of the future. Doesn't matter how small your organization is, your HR needs to shift with these times, with these trends, or it's just going to remain irrelevant, or organizations are going to go elsewhere to buy the HR services if your internal HR fraternity doesn't change and move with the times. So for South Africa this year, so the top 5 trends are the ones in front of us. So out of the 10, so these ones actually came quite prominently in terms of the agency and importance. So the first one is belonging. And again, this is one of these chapters that we are seeing now. So we are actually releasing a lot of research as Deloitte around belonging and well-being. The second one was ethics. I think I've just spent some time on this. And then the third one was, of course, well-being. I think in the face of the pandemic, and it's going to be living with us for a while now, we need to think about how do we ensure that we create a sense of well-being and belonging in the face of these flexible work arrangements that we see in front of us. So living and performing at your best while you're actually not in one place. So proximity is not going to be the issue anymore, but how do we motivate workforce to actually dig deeper into that discretionary effort when they're actually allowed to work in a flexible manner? The fourth one, which came as a surprise to me, as you saw in the report, a lot of people felt that actually they don't need to reinvest or invest in reskilling the workforce. But in terms of importance and agency, that became our number 4. So, and again, the emphasis here is around resilience. Don't reskill for the sake of just helping people to work better with machine, but think about sustainability of the new skills as well that you impart in the workforce. So future fitness is important. And then the last one, which is number 5 in the top 5, is the evolving role of HR. And again, I want to emphasize this: if you are if you are listening to this conversation, you are part of HR, ask yourself a question. Having seen these 9 trends, how is your HR going to shift with the times and reorganize and reset itself to be future fit and to extend its influence, especially in the next 10 years? Don't be short-sighted and talk about 2 to 3 years or 5 years. Think about what could happen. I mean, this report has been happening over 10 years at Deloitte, as you saw. Think about how are the trends in 10 years going to look like, and where will HR be during that period of time? So that to me is important as well. It's not about just extending focus or extended influence, but also how is it going to shape itself to remain relevant? So those are the top 5 trends for 2020. So if you're on the call and you want to have access to the report as we close, you can either download it via our Deloitte.com site /HC trends, or right now you can scan this QR code. It will take you to your browser, then you can download the reports there. Or you can just download the Deloitte Insights app from your Apple Store or your Google Play Store. And then you can find all kinds of insights there, well beyond just AC trends. This year also, we've got an additional report around returning to work in the future of work beyond COVID-19, which is the one on the right-hand side. You can find it also, but the key report is quite lengthy, and I encourage all of you on the call to download it and maybe read it later at your leisure. Richard, that's my time. I'm going to hand it back to you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Fantastic, thank you. That was really insightful, and I've got a couple of questions that I would love to kickstart the discussion on. If you want to maybe just turn on your camera. There we go. Okay. So yes, my mind was racing actually while you were presenting on a few of those topics. But one of the most significant for me, and I did take the time to read the full reports, 120 odd pages of it, but which was really interesting. There was one thing, and perhaps you can talk from the perspective of how you deal and what you've seen in your client base and what are organizations thinking about. But there was one area in particular that really struck me, was how in the future, and this specifically for HR related people, is there the opportunity to no longer pigeonhole or categorize people in certain roles in their business only, and to start to skill them and reskill them in other areas of the business and actually place them across the business? So for simple explanation, if you're in sales and you've always been in sales and sales has always been your focus, why can't you spend time in finance? Or why can't you spend time on a project in another area of the business? And perhaps maybe mid to large sector size organizations are probably better suited because they can maybe afford to pull someone out of a role and put them into another. But is that confusing? Like, what's your view on that?
Thanks, Richard. There's a big shift in terms of the job design or how jobs are evolving, and not just because of this report. We've been doing a lot of work around new job canvases and the new job design. What we find that there's a narrative around the emergence of job sharing. I mean, you mentioned, if you are in human capital or a traditional HR professional, why do you not share a job in finance, in supply chain management, and elsewhere? Because as we see, we find that there's also the new narrative around network of teams. People are not working in buckets of jobs anymore, but they're working as teams, and these teams come together for a specific task, mission, or project, and then they dissolve again when that mission or project is achieved. So even the way we do performance management with our clients now, we are beginning to say, think of people and teams as networks, and then they rally together for a specific task or mission, and then they can dissolve again, go back wherever they came from. So the way we look at job sharing is around, we say line managers must manage work and manage projects and not worry about managing people or teams. Because we need to move where our skills and capabilities are demanded. When that demand is no longer there, and you move and dissolve into a different place. So job sharing and job canvases, and maybe we're looking at the way we share jobs in terms of saying it's demand-led. It's not because of a job description. So you could be an HR professional. If your skill and capabilities demanded in supply chain, you can play in that space as well, as an example.
Okay, fantastic. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but I love the idea maybe on a by project sort of initiative that you bring multiple people from different areas of the business for a particular project, dissolve and then move on to something else while still possibly maintaining your core role and focus area. Yeah, okay, great. So yeah, then also what struck me, which is maybe a controversial topic around compensation, which you said that you know was one of the key themes in the report. What are the new models? You know, how are we going from you know, just I don't know, is it a fixed salary to something else? And is this potentially linked into a by project type of on-demand work-related requirement? What are the other compensation alternatives?
Richard, good question. What we're seeing now is that I spoke earlier about multi-generational workforces that are emerging. You see, baby boomers and Gen X's and millennials and perennials, they want to be rewarded differently. Young people that are entering the economy, they are so much interested in cash salaries. But if you are probably Gen X and baby boomer, you probably want compensation strategies that are going to help you invest for retirement, as an example. So if you're somewhere in the middle, you probably just want cash bonus, performance bonus, and the like. So what we are seeing is that a lot of companies that we work with and clients are beginning to find a very diverse and complex ways of reward, and some of it is, of course, it's performance related, and some of it is actually intrinsic, what we call non-financial reward. So if you're going to link pay to performance, try to think about non-financial packs that you can think of, especially because some workforce types would want to be rewarded, for instance, one day with a CEO. Sometimes some actually want to look at developmental opportunities. And some want to maybe have time working in a different area where they are not familiar with, as an example. So you need to find a very good mix between cash, intrinsic reward, as well as extrinsic reward, especially gaining the understanding that different generations of the workforce want to be rewarded differently, and they appreciate the reward and see reward in a very, very different way.
That's fantastic. And I never thought of that, the importance of that and the various different generations. Perhaps the younger generation would love the ability to sit with the CEO for a day because they don't ordinarily have access to them, and they can learn from that. That has, you know, significant value. Okay, great. I love that. So with that respect, you know, those are sort of all very great out of the box thinking, which you know, sort of pegs the responsibility of our human capital managers and chief people officers to come up with and define these new ways of working. In the trends, the South African trends, there was the key topic around HR, and so you know, like what are the tangible tactics or things that HR need to go from, you know, sort of, let's say, an immature HR function which just manages payroll to something like people and culture and succession planning and sort of more advanced related stuff. You know, so what are the shifts that HR need to move into to manage the new world of work and multi-generational workforces?
Yeah, I think this chapter number 10, Richard, the memo to HR, has been a very popular chapter for us because a lot of our clients rush to actually read that chapter. So what? So how can HR become relevant? So we are saying that when we talk about exponential HR, we talking about the extending the reach and influence beyond internal clients and also understanding the bigger picture of the ecosystem. So we are saying there, if you are in HR and you're obsessed with transactional services, those things machines can do. I always say to my clients, machines are taking over the stuff that we hate doing anyway, which is very transactional, boring, repetitive, and easy to copy. So machines can't have empathy, can't envision, can't have feelings. So machines are there to take over transactional tasks that we as HR professionals do not like doing anyway. So if that's the case, what is left for us as humans, as HR humans? So how we extend the reach and influence is not just business partnering, which is old Ulrich's model that's no longer working. So we are saying to become exponential, move with the times, try to imagine what business wants to buy from HR and what external clients are going to recognize HR for in terms of partnership, becoming future fit, becoming digitally led, and redesigning jobs and helping businesses actually manage performance, policy frameworks, designing of jobs in a very, very imaginative way moving forward. So a lot of transactions, whether payroll or processing of forms, machines can do that, or systems can do that. We are seeing, yesterday we were listening on at the Asia conference around Workday and the new systems around Salesforce, taking some of the tasks and responsibilities that we used to do. So this gives us as a professionals an opportunities to do things that are going to require work that machines can't copy, such as empathy, envisioning, and those kinds of things, which is, a lot of people say these are soft skills. There's nothing soft about them because they are not easy to impart, they are not easy to develop, so there's really nothing soft about them. But it's that reskilling chapter, therefore, is important to be able to reskill people to do things that machines cannot copy easily.
Okay, brilliant. That's a great segue into my next question, which is, specifically talking about AI. And sure. In my view, I think there's a lot of confusion about what is AI. You know, there's this whole talk about the fourth industrial revolution, and there's this terminology that gets thrown around. So in the sort of context of HR and business, where are you seeing AI being used well, like and companies that have taken advantage of it, and how and what skills and how have they sort of upgraded in order to leverage the benefits of AI?
Yeah, you see, Richard, AI and digital transformation has got very little to do with technology and systems. It's all about mindset. So a lot of, there's a misconception with our clients and with the fraternity of HR at large to say, AI is about machines, AI is about technology and systems, it's going to displace our skills. AI really is about the mindset. I spoke earlier about super teams. We regard machines as talent. So if machines are talent, we need to find a way where people and humans can collaborate meaningfully with machines in such a way that it's not about a machine replacing a human being, it's about collaboration and interface. So it's about thinking, how can we leverage upon new ways of thinking and leverage upon technological advancements and digital transformation to help humans focus on what humans can do and not be bogged down to transactional activities that are boring, repetitive, and not value adding. So the opportunity that AI is bringing is for humans to do only value adding activities that there's no machine can do, so that we can leave that stuff that's boring to machines. But however, we have to work together as super teams. That is why that chapter around super teams is important. But we have to reskill people so that they understand how they collaborate with machines and how they extract data information and produce reports working closely with machines. So machines really should not be a threat, but should be giving us an opportunity to focus on what humans can do better.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so those are all the questions that I had. We haven't got anything from the audiences yet, so I think we can move to start closing off. And maybe one final question would be, you know, as an HR professional leading and managing a group of employees, what would you believe going into 2021, having read the report and whatever, would be the #1 sort of key focus area because of COVID and because of given where we are at the moment, that would be your most important thing for organizations to really take a hold of?
Yeah, as we close, I want to start with HR professionals. HR professionals must not wait to be invited to the table. They must invite themselves to the table. I spoke earlier about extending your reach and increasing your influence. A lot of leaders see HR as an enabler, as a partner, as a support function. And therefore, they won't invite you to the table if they see you as such. So what we are saying is, as soon as you can demonstrate your influence and your thinking around strategy, because talent is strategy. So invite yourself to the table and use data and insights to show leaders why HR has to the table and why HR needs to be in the key decision-making processes of the firm. As soon as they see you as just doing documentation, labor processes, policies around workforce, payroll, performance management, you're going to remain in the back foot. You're going to remain as a support function. So I think successful CHROs are the ones that invite themselves to the table, ask the tough questions around talent, ask the tough questions around workforce mobility. As we move into 2021, we've produced as Deloitte a lot of research around workforce strategies beyond COVID-19. I think Q2 and Q3 next year, we are beginning to see already most of our clients coming back to work. Some of them are a bit confused about which jobs and which roles are going to come back to work and why. So I think the role of HR here is to assist and almost oversee that process of figuring out what's the future workforce going to look like beyond COVID-19. When we talk about this new normal, how does it look like? Most of our clients are actually saying, actually, we don't need the office space that we have now. And then we're beginning to have conversations with them around workplace redesign. How do you redesign your real estate for distancing, for health protocols, and in such a way that only specific roles return to work? Because if we have been able to perform remotely over the past 5-6 months, a lot of your workforce is going to refuse to come back to work. Or they're just going to ask you the question, if I've been able to deliver on my deliverables or on my business outcomes over the past 5 months, why do you insist I should return? So we need to help our leaders think about real estate design or workplace redesign, and also help them think about how do we create this network of teams that can work in a remote fashion. Because really, the studies show, Richard, that workplace culture has got nothing to do with physical proximity in terms of where people sit. You can actually improve the workplace culture by working the way we are working now, as long as there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of wellness, there's a sense of well-being, and there's a sense of interconnectedness and connection between teams. So my advice to HR professionals is to think about how do you start having conversations with your leaders or business leaders around how do you reconfigure the space, the workspace, and how do you start rethinking about workforce redesign in such a way that next year it's very clear who returns to the office and why, and who remains in a flexible work arrangement and why. For me, that's going to be the key for HR to play that influence, that extended reach in terms of business partnership going forward.
Spot on. That's absolutely perfect. Thank you. All righty. So thank you so much. I'm very grateful that you've given us your wisdom and your sage advice and insights from the report. I highly recommend that everybody go and download the report and read it page by page. It'll take a few days for it to sink in and settle in, and you'll have to reread a few sections here and there. And then also that new report that has also just been released that you showed earlier. We will send a follow-up email to everyone where they can download these reports as well. So again, thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah, especially around the one, the bonus report around workforce recovery strategies, which is on top of the main report. I'll encourage everyone to read, to have a look at that one as well.
Yeah, I'm going to download it now and read it over the weekend.
Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All the best to you, and cheers to everybody.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.